The African sun was sinking slowly behind the wide savanna, painting the sky with deep orange and dusty red colors. The wind moved gently through the tall grass, carrying the smell of dry earth and distant smoke from village cooking fires. Near the long highway that cut through the land, a small, forgotten village called Mabuto prepared for night. At the edge of this road sat a man nobody wanted to see. His name was Jabari. Jabari was a one-legged beggar. Years earlier, he had been a strong worker at a stone quarry near the mountains. One careless explosion changed his life forever. When he woke up in a small clinic, his left leg was gone. The company vanished, the promises disappeared. Friends slowly stopped visiting. Jabari returned to Mabuto with a broken body and a heavy heart. Now, every day he sat beside the road with a wooden crutch and a small metal bowl. Children whispered and laughed when they passed him. Drivers looked away. Some people believed bad luck followed him. Jabari heard everything, but said nothing. He had learned that silence was safer than anger. That afternoon, Mabuto felt different. The usual sounds of goats and chatter were mixed with something rare. The low hum of expensive engines. A long black luxury car slowed as it passed the village, raising dust behind it. Inside the car sat a powerful man known across Africa. Mr. Daniel Okoro. He was a billionaire businessman, owner of construction companies, mines, and transport networks. His name opened doors in cities and closed mouths in boardrooms. But today, none of that mattered to him. All that mattered were his sons. Daniel Okoro was a widower. His twin boys, Ethan and Eli, were his only family. He guarded them fiercely, surrounding them with drivers, guards, and rules. Yet the boys were curious, restless, and full of life. The car stopped near the open land beside Mabuto, so the driver could take a phone call. Guards stepped out, scanning the area. The twins stared through the window, bored. "Let's get out," Ethan said. "Just for a minute," Eli added. Before anyone noticed, the boys slipped out and ran toward the open savanna, laughing as the wind pushed against their faces. Jabari heard their laughter. He turned his head slowly. The sound did not belong here. He could tell by their voices. These were children who had never known hunger or fear. Their shoes hit the ground lightly. Their laughter was free. Jabari watched them move closer to the road where large trucks often sped through without slowing. His chest tightened. He tried to stand, but paused. His missing leg burned with old pain. He hesitated, knowing how people treated him when he caused trouble. Just then, he heard it, a truck, fast, heavy, unforgiving. Its engine roared from the curve ahead, hidden by trees and dust. The boys did not hear it. Jabari shouted, "Stop! Come back!" His voice cracked, thin and weak against the wind. The boys kept running. People from the village noticed too late. Someone screamed. A guard turned, his face draining of color. The truck burst into view. In that moment, Jabari did not think like a beggar. He thought like a father. He dropped his bowl. The coins scattered into the dirt. He threw his crutch aside and dragged himself forward, pulling his body with raw strength. His hands scraped against stones. Pain screamed through his arms and chest. The truck was seconds away. Jabari reached the boys and pushed them with all the strength left in his body. They fell hard into the grass as the truck rushed past, missing them by a breath. The air exploded with noise. The driver slammed the brakes, guards ran, villagers shouted. Jabari lay on the road bleeding, his body twisted. His breathing was shallow, his face was covered in dust and blood. The twins were crying, but alive. A man ran toward Jabari. His expensive shoes stopped inches from the beggar's blood-stained body. Daniel Okoro stared down, his hands shaking. The most powerful man in the region dropped to his knees. "This man saved my sons," he whispered. Tears filled his eyes. Jabari looked up weakly, his vision blurred. Before losing consciousness, he heard Daniel Okoro's voice break as he shouted for help. "Do whatever it takes," the billionaire said. "Do not let this man die." The night closed in, and Mabuto would never be the same again. The night grew heavy over Mabuto. A cold wind swept across the road where Jabari lay bleeding, his blood mixing with dust and broken stones. Headlights from the stopped truck and the luxury car cut through the darkness, throwing long, shaking shadows across the savannah. The sound of insects faded, replaced by panic, shouting, and fear. Daniel Okoro knelt beside Jabari like a man who had forgotten who he was. His expensive jacket brushed the dirt, but he did not care. His eyes were locked on the broken beggar who had just saved his world. "Call the doctor," Daniel ordered, his voice trembling. "Call anyone, now!" The guards moved fast. Phones came out. One ran toward the village. Another tried to stop the bleeding with his jacket. The twins, Ethan and Eli, clung to each other, shaking. Their faces were pale, their eyes wide with shock. They stared at Jabari, as if looking at a man from another life. "He pushed us," Ethan whispered. "He didn't run," Eli said, his voice breaking. "He crawled." Daniel turned toward his sons, pulled them into his arms and held them tightly. His body shook. He had faced business losses, courtrooms, enemies, and power struggles, but nothing had prepared him for the sight of his children almost dying, and nothing had prepared him for the truth that a man the world ignored had saved them. Minutes felt like hours. Jabari's breathing grew weaker. Each breath sounded like it might be his last. His one good leg was bent at an unnatural angle. Blood soaked his torn clothes. His face showed pain, but also a strange calm. An old village elder, Mazi Kalaba, stepped forward slowly. His walking stick tapped the ground as he looked down at Jabari. "This man," the elder said quietly, "has known suffering for many years." Daniel looked up. "Who is he?" "A forgotten son of this land," the elder replied. "His name is Jabari. No family, no help, only dignity." Those words cut deeper than any knife. Finally, an old ambulance arrived from the nearby town. Its siren wailed through the night, echoing against the hills. Villagers stepped back as the medics lifted Jabari onto a stretcher. As they carried him away, Jabari's eyes opened slightly. He saw Daniel's face above him. "Why?" Daniel asked softly, his voice shaking. "Why did you do it?" Jabari swallowed hard. "Children," he whispered, "should not die. For speed." Those were his last words before he lost consciousness again. At the hospital was small and under-resourced. Flickering lights buzzed overhead. The smell of disinfectant mixed with dust and sweat. Nurses rushed Jabari into the emergency room while Daniel Okoro stood frozen in the hallway. For the first time in decades, Daniel felt powerless. Doctors spoke in low, urgent voices. He lost a lot of blood. The injury to his leg is severe. He may not survive the night. Daniel sat down heavily on a metal bench. His guards stood silently behind him. The twins sat beside him, holding his hands. "I was angry at him," Ethan said quietly. "For begging," Eli added, tears falling. "I thought he was weak." Daniel closed his eyes. "So did the world," he whispered. Hours passed slowly. The hospital clock ticked loudly. Every sound felt too sharp. Daniel replayed the moment again and again in his mind. Jabari, dragging himself forward, throwing his broken body in front of death. A doctor finally stepped out. "He is alive," the doctor said, "but he needs surgery and long care." Daniel stood up instantly. "Do everything, whatever it costs." The doctor hesitated. "Sir, this hospital—" Daniel raised his hand. In the midground, Daniel Okoro. African male, early 30s, athletic build, short natural. Afro hair, clean-shaven face, dark charcoal suit with a light blue dress shirt, stands. "I will build you a new one if needed." The doctor nodded and returned inside. The question that would not leave. While Jabari fought for his life, Daniel Okoro faced a battle of his own. He could not sleep. He walked outside the hospital, staring into the dark African sky. The same sky that had watched a poor man choose sacrifice over survival. Daniel had spent his life measuring value in numbers, profits, shares, power, but tonight none of it mattered. A beggar with one leg had done what wealth never could, saved his sons. Daniel clenched his fists. What kind of man allows someone like that to suffer, he asked himself. The answer was painful. I did. He realized something terrifying. If Jabari had died that night, the world would have lost a hero, and never even known his name. Back in Maputo, news spread fast. By morning, the village of Maputo buzzed with whispers. The beggar saved a billionaire's children. He is fighting for his life, the rich man cried. People gathered near Jabari's empty hut. The same people who once ignored him now stood in silence. Mzee Kalaba spoke to them. Today, the elder said, we must face ourselves. No one replied. A promise formed in silence. Back at the hospital, Daniel stood beside Jabari's bed as machines beeped softly. Jabari lay unconscious, fragile, barely alive. Daniel reached out and gently held Jabari's rough hand. I don't know if you can hear me, Daniel said, his voice low, heavy with emotion. But I swear, your life will never be forgotten. Tears rolled down his face, tears no boardroom had ever seen. Outside, the sun rose slowly over the African land. And with it came consequences that would shake every life involved. The steady sound of machines filled the air, marking each fragile breath Jabari took. Outside, the African sun rose over the town, but inside the room, time seemed frozen. Jabari was still unconscious. Daniel Okoro had not left the hospital all night. He sat on a chair beside the bed, his jacket folded neatly on his lap. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, his face older than it had ever looked in boardrooms or conferences. Power had always given him control. But here, beside a poor man fighting for life, he had none. A nurse entered quietly to check Jabari's vitals. She paused when she saw Daniel still there. You have not slept, she said gently. Daniel shook his head. I will sleep later. She nodded with understanding. He is strong, she said, stronger than most. Those words stayed with Daniel. Strong. That was not how the world described men like Jabari. Later that morning, Mzee Kalaba, the village elder, arrived at the hospital. He walked slowly, his face serious, carrying a small worn bag. The guards stopped him at first, but Daniel waved them away. Let him come, Daniel said. The elder stood by Jabari's bed for a long moment, his eyes filled with memory. This place, Mzee Kalaba said quietly, is not where Jabari's story began. Daniel turned to him. Tell me. The elder opened his bag and pulled out an old photograph, faded and bent at the corners. He placed it gently on the table beside the bed. Daniel picked it up. It showed a younger Jabari, standing tall, strong, smiling. He wore a work uniform. Beside him stood a woman and a small child. Daniel's throat tightened. He had a family, Daniel said. Yes, the elder replied. A wife named Nala, a daughter named Asha. What happened? Mzee Kalaba sighed deeply. The quarry accident took his leg, but poverty took everything else. He explained how Jabari's employer abandoned him, how medical bills swallowed his savings, how Nala worked day and night but fell sick, how Asha died from fever when help came too late. Daniel closed his eyes. Jabari had lost everything, yet still chose to save others. That realization hit Daniel harder than any business failure ever had. Later that day, Ethan and Eli were allowed to visit Jabari. They stood quietly at the foot of the bed, unsure of what to say. Ethan broke the silence. Daddy, he whispered. Will he wake up? Daniel knelt beside them. I hope so, he said honestly. Eli looked at Jabari's bandaged leg and thin face. Why did he help us? He asked. He didn't even know us. Daniel thought carefully before answering. Because, he said slowly, he is a good man. The boys stared at Jabari with new eyes. Can we thank him? Ethan asked. Daniel nodded. When he wakes up. The twins held Jabari's hand gently, their small fingers resting on his rough skin. For the first time since the accident, Jabari's fingers moved slightly. The nurse noticed it. He is responding, she said. Hope. The turning point. That evening, Jabari finally opened his eyes. The light hurt. His body felt heavy. Pain wrapped around him like chains. He tried to move but could not. Daniel leaned forward instantly. You're safe, he said softly. You're in the hospital. Jabari's lips moved. The boys? They are alive, Daniel replied. Because of you. Tears filled Jabari's eyes. That is enough, he whispered. Daniel shook his head, overwhelmed. No, he said firmly, it is not enough. He told Jabari everything, who he was, how powerful he was, and what he intended to do. I owe you my sons' lives, Daniel said. I will take care of you. You will never beg again. Jabari listened silently. Then he spoke words that stunned everyone in the room. I did not save them, Jabari said weakly, to be paid. Daniel felt his chest tighten. I know, Daniel replied. That is why I must. Jabari turned his face slightly away. I only want one thing, he said. Daniel leaned closer. Anything. Do not forget people like me, Jabari whispered, when you return to your world. Those words marked the true turning point. Daniel realized this was not just about gratitude. It was about responsibility. A decision made. That night, Daniel Okoro made a decision that would change many lives. He cancelled meetings. He delayed deals. He stayed. He ordered investigations into the quarry company. He instructed his foundation to prepare medical support for Mabuto. He began plans, not out of pride, but out of conscience. For the first time, Daniel's wealth had a purpose greater than growth. And for the first time, Jabari was no longer invisible. As the night settled over the hospital, the machines beeped steadily. Jabari slept. Alive. Daniel stood by the window, staring at the dark land beyond. What began as an accident was becoming a reckoning. The hospital corridor felt smaller with every passing hour. Daniel Okoro stood near the window, watching dust rise from the road below as cars passed. The sun was high now, bright and unforgiving, just like the truth pressing on his mind. Jabari slept behind him, his breathing slow but steady. Yet Daniel knew peace would not come easily. Power attracts attention. By midday, news had reached the city. Phones rang, messages arrived, advisors demanded answers. Sir, the media is asking questions. Sir, investors want to know why you cancelled meetings. Sir, why are you staying in a small-town hospital? Daniel said nothing. For the first time in his life, he chose silence over control. In the afternoon, 2 men arrived unannounced. They wore clean suits, sharp shoes, and confident expressions. They introduced themselves as representatives of Kavira Quarry Group, the same company where Jabari had lost his leg years ago. Daniel recognized the name immediately. His jaw tightened. We heard about the accident involving your sons, one of the men said smoothly. We are relieved they are safe. Daniel looked at them coldly. Why are you here? The second man smiled nervously. We also heard that a former employee of ours was injured while saving them. Daniel stepped closer. Former? He asked quietly. The men shifted. That man, Daniel said, pointing toward Jabari's room, was abandoned by your company after an accident. One of the men cleared his throat. We followed protocol at the time. Daniel's voice hardened. Protocol does not leave a man begging by the road. The men exchanged looks. We came to offer compensation, the first man said quickly, to avoid misunderstandings. Daniel laughed once, a cold, bitter sound. You are too late, he said. They left without another word, but the damage was done. The truth had come knocking. Later that evening, Jabari woke again. This time, he was more aware. He noticed the clean sheets, the machines, the quiet respect in the nurse's eyes. It all felt wrong to him, too much, too kind. Daniel sat beside him. The quarry company came today, Daniel said carefully. Jabari's face tightened. They do not care, Jabari said. They never did. Daniel nodded. I know. Jabari closed his eyes. I did not want you to see me like this, he said softly. Broken, dependent. Daniel leaned forward. You are not broken. Jabari shook his head weakly. I lost my leg. I lost my family. I lost my place in the world. Daniel felt something tear inside him. You saved my sons, he said. You gave them their future. Jabari's voice trembled. And still, when I return to Mabuto, I will return to nothing. That was the emotional wound no money could instantly heal. That night, Ethan and Eli visited again. They brought a small drawing. It showed two stick figures holding hands with a man using a crutch. Ethan handed it to Jabari. "That's you," he said. "You're strong." Jabari stared at the paper. His hands shook. "No one has ever drawn me," he whispered. Eli looked confused. "Why?" Jabari did not answer. Daniel watched, his heart heavy. Children saw heroes where adults saw inconvenience. As days passed, tension grew. Media trucks arrived outside the hospital. Villagers whispered. Rumors spread. Some said Jabari would become rich overnight. Others said Daniel was using the story for publicity. Some villagers grew jealous. Others felt ashamed. Mazi Kalaba warned Daniel quietly. "Be careful," the elder said. "When truth rises, so does envy." But he refused to step back. He announced publicly that Jabari's care would continue and that Mabuto would receive development support. That announcement changed everything. Anger surfaced. "Why him?" some villagers asked. "What about the rest of us?" others shouted. Jabari heard the noise from his hospital bed, and guilt crushed him. "I never wanted this," Jabari told Daniel. "I did not save your sons to become a problem." Daniel took his hand firmly. "You are not the problem," he said. "The problem is a world that ignores suffering until it becomes inconvenient." One evening, a woman arrived quietly at the hospital. She stood at the door, hesitant. Her name was Zuri. She was Jabari's younger sister. They had not spoken in years. She approached the bed slowly, tears in her eyes. "I thought you were dead," she said. Jabari stared at her in shock. "I was ashamed," she continued. "I could not help you. I thought forgetting would hurt less." Jabari turned away, pain flooding his face. "Seeing you on the news," Zuri whispered, "I realized forgetting hurts more." Silence filled the room. Daniel stepped outside, giving them space. Inside, brother and sister cried, not for wealth, but for lost time. That reunion changed Jabari more than any promise Daniel had made. He was no longer alone. As night fell, Mabuto buzzed with tension. Old wounds were opening, truths were surfacing. Power was being questioned. Daniel Okoro stood between two worlds, one of wealth and control, the other of pain and forgotten lives. And Jabari, the man with one leg, had unknowingly become the center of it all. The savannah wind rose again. Something was coming. The morning air over Mabuto felt heavy, as if the land itself was holding its breath. From early hours, people gathered near the hospital and along the dusty road. Some came out of curiosity. Others came with anger, jealousy, or hope. News had traveled far. Not just that a beggar saved a billionaire's sons, but that the billionaire had stayed, listened, and acted. That alone was enough to disturb many powerful people. Daniel Okoro stood outside the hospital, facing the crowd. His guards stayed back. He did not want distance today. Jabari watched from a wheelchair near the entrance. His body was weak, but his eyes were alert. Zuri stood beside him, holding his hand. The twins stood with their father, silent and serious. Mazi Kalaba stepped forward first. "People of Mabuto," the elder said, his voice firm but calm. "We are gathered not to celebrate money, but to face truth." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Daniel took a step forward. "I am not here to make a speech," he said. "I am here because a man you ignored saved my sons when the world could have taken them away." A man from the crowd shouted, "So now he becomes special?" Jabari lowered his head. Daniel turned toward the voice. "He was always special," he said. "We just chose not to see it." Silence followed. Just then, several cars arrived. The same men from Kavira Quarry Group stepped out, joined by lawyers and officials. Cameras turned instantly. One of the company representatives spoke loudly. "We regret what happened years ago," he said. "We are ready to offer compensation now." Daniel laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Now?" he asked. "After cameras arrived?" The man stiffened. "We are following procedure." Daniel turned to the crowd. "This is how suffering survives," he said. "Not because help is impossible, but because responsibility is delayed." He looked at Jabari. "Tell them," Daniel said softly. Jabari's hands trembled. Zuri squeezed them gently. Jabari lifted his head and spoke, his voice weak but steady. "I lost my leg at the quarry," he said. "I was promised help. It never came. My wife died waiting. My child died waiting. I learned how invisible a poor man can become." The crowd grew quiet. "No one came to my door," Jabari continued, "until I lay bleeding on the road." Some people lowered their eyes. The company men looked away. Then something unexpected happened. Ethan stepped forward. He was small, but his voice carried. "If this man did not crawl onto the road," he said, "my brother and I would be dead." Eli joined him. "He didn't know us," Eli added. "He didn't ask who we were." Tears ran down the twins' faces. Daniel placed a hand on each of their shoulders. "Today," Daniel said, his voice breaking, "my sons learned what courage looks like." The crowd shifted. Something changed. Daniel turned back to the company representatives. "You will answer for what you did," he said calmly. "Not to me, to the law." Gasps spread. Daniel continued, his voice strong. "I will fund legal support for workers you abandoned. Jabari had nothing the world respects. No money, no influence, no voice. He was ignored, judged, and pushed aside. Yet when the moment came, he acted with courage that many powerful people never show. He did not stop to ask who the children were, what they were worth, or what he would gain. He acted because it was right. His sacrifice reminds us that human value is not measured by wealth, health, or status, but by character." Daniel Okoro had everything society admires: wealth, authority, protection, control. But that night showed him something money never could. Privilege without responsibility is empty. For the first time, he saw how easily the world forgets people like Jabari, and how dangerous that forgetting can be. The corridor felt smaller, because his understanding grew larger. He realized that looking away is also a choice, and often the most harmful one. The twins learned early what many learned too late. Strength does not always look strong. Sometimes it looks wounded, quiet, and overlooked. Sometimes it crawls.